It was a long walk from the G, I tell you that. Welcome guys, welcome to the round 22 review. Just got back to my car from a nice stroll from the MCG. Final score was Carlton 78, St Kilda 68. Yeah, really frustrating, I think, is how we all feel. Comment your thoughts firstly. Thank you for joining, all of you who are watching from everywhere around Australia. Comment your thoughts and we can discuss what that was. The good, the bad, the ugly, the in-between, pretty much everything. Let's go from the start. First quarter, I knew that Carlton are going to come out and they're going to play aggressive. The crowd, 51,000, really strong crowd. The David Teague train is kicking in. They've signed him on this week. Not to mention Paddy Cripps, his 100th. And, you've got Daisy Thomas, who's not getting a contract next year, so this is essentially his farewell game at the MCG. So they had all the emotion. Sometimes that can go against you. That doesn't mean you win. But they just had this emotion to them, and everything they did because they did it for a reason. And, the crowd, the way they reacted at the end, it was like a grand final win for them. The way they were playing, the way the crowd was riding every bump. We were really up against it today. When I look at it from, objectively, we were up against it. They had everything going for them. We started slow, but we picked it up. I thought Marshall played really well. Cruiser got on top, I thought, in the latter parts of the game. But I thought, look at Marshall, and he still had 30-odd disposals. 30-odd hit-outs, 20 disposals, 7 tackles. Jack still had 14 tackles. So there was a lot of good. There was a bracket of 5 to 6 plays that really stood up. But then you look at the last 6, and you go, Loney didn't really do anything. Jack Nunes had a mare. He wasn't great. Who was the other one? Akers took a couple of clunks, but again, his output's not enough to justify his position. Jack Sinclair was okay, but again, probably had less than 20 possessions. I didn't see the stats, but there's a lot of players there that don't do enough. There's too many passengers in this team. And then I don't mention, but Jack Stephen, that it was almost a turning point in that game, but where he got the ball and he ran into the goal square and thought he could fend off a player that's double his size, and then he gets tackled, and we don't get the scoreboard pressure there when we were on top. Membry missing a few easy goals. The one directly in front was a killer because then they go down the other end, and I think McGovern or someone capitalises. We tried a few different things. We put Carlisle forward, which was interesting. It seemed to free up Bruce, but Carlisle, apart from that goal he kicked, not a great game from him. Nathan Brown, notably, was excellent. I thought he handled their forward line really well, one-on-one especially. They didn't outmark him, outbody him at all. Hunter Clark was solid. Thought Ross was good without being great. No one stood out. Honestly, no one stood out for me. We had our patches, and when we, Membry snapped that goal in the last quarter and we go 3 points up, I thought, okay, well, Carlton are running out of legs here. They came out hot in that first 10 minutes of that last quarter, but then they finished hot. They stopped, but then they started very quickly, and the momentum they had, we couldn't stop them, and that's the disappointing part, is that we couldn't stop them when they got on top, and couldn't get Bruce into the game enough, I thought. Overall, though, it's a 10-point loss to a team that's having, the biggest week of their season in terms of new coach, players, 100 milestones, fans turning out. It's funny, when they're losing, they don't get anywhere near a crowd like that, but when they're winning, the fans are happy to jump on board. Whereas us fans, we turn up most weeks, and we don't really expect the best. So I can't wait for when we start getting on a roll and seeing the crowds that turn out at Marvel. But highlight for me was probably Nick Hind. I thought Nick Hind was, he was just, I'm going to say exciting, exhilarating, get your heart pumping. He set up some very clever goals for us, but he also kicked, kicked some good goals, and that one where he picked the ball off of the deck off the wing, kicked it and nailed the pass, but then he kept running, and we messed up a few of those chances that he created there. But Dunstan has that shot, and then he roves it off the pack and snaps a good goal. Hanbury was very quiet. I don't know what his stats were in the end. I'm not making excuses, Ian. Listen to what I say properly, or don't tune in. I'm not making excuses. I forgot my train of thought there, but yeah, I don't know what even to say to this. They were hungrier. That's what I posted at the end. That's how I felt. I don't know what you guys think, but I thought that, when it came to that last 5 minutes and the game was in the balance, they really worked hard, and I didn't think we worked hard enough for long enough. Last week, 9 points down with 3 minutes to go, and it came off. This week, 9 points down with 3 minutes to go, and we lose by 10 points. So it didn't come off in the end, and it's not going to come off every week, but I'm proud of, how we've been under Ratton. Next week's going to be interesting, going to Sydney. Sydney played well last night, so it's not going to be an easy game. And I'm just curious, if we lose to Sydney next week, would that mean 3 wins and 3 losses for Ratton in his 6 games? Is that enough to say that he is the man for the job, or does it still leave it open to someone else to interview? It's going to be interesting, depending on what happens. I think if we beat Sydney next week in Sydney, I think he might get the job. I think if we lose badly to Sydney, I'm not sure. It'll be interesting. Let's go through some of the comments. There's been so many, so thanks for everyone for commenting and waiting for me to do this. It's like a 20-minute walk from the G, so I couldn't do it straight away. Radley says, heartbreaking, was there at the game and it was brutal seeing our last quarter efforts. Our last quarters at the G recently against Collingwood and against Carlton, really, really not doing well there. We just couldn't run those games out, which is disappointing. Cameron says, imagine if we didn't have Hunter Clark. Some players should hand back their match payments. Minnie says, quite clearly didn't want the game more. Our intensity was awful. John says, Stuv was a liability today, cost us the game. Big call there. I don't know if he cost us the game, but, he didn't do anything really, did he? Last week he was the match saver. This week, you're saying he cost us the match, but he wouldn't go far from that. Peter says, Loney's effort in the last quarter was poor. Let him get in front and then couldn't chase him down. Summed up our game. Yeah, that passage where we made Cade Simpson look like he was Usain Bolt. That was disappointing to see. So, there was just patches there where that's the confidence that Carlton are oozing at the moment with everything happening for them. We've had that recently against Melbourne, against the Dogs, and against Freo to a lesser extent. But, our 2 losses have been 20 points away in Adelaide and 10 points to Carlton when they've just had everything going for them. And I'm not going to call out, but that passage of play where the umpires gave 1 free kick on the wing, 1 free kick at half forward, and then a deliberate that wasn't a deliberate for a snap-on goal was fucking atrocious. There's 3 free kicks directly in a row in a critical passage in the last quarter, giving them a score. It's ridiculous, those sort of calls, and it just turns a very close game the other way. That hurt. First live loss I've witnessed. Cooper says the whole fucking lot of them. Shit. Goodbye Dunstan, gets a contract, then does nothing. Piss off to Sandy. Ben Long can join you. Carlisle can play in the VFL too. Ben Patton, terrible. I don't get all the hate for Ben Long. I think that he, unlike, people diss on Nunes and Patton and those guys, but am I the only one that sees Ben Long having some serious X factor? Did anyone see the goal he scored against Adelaide? Did anyone see that goal, that important goal that he kicked today, snapping it around the corner from 50? And he's the only player, rarely do our players do this, but they lead up to the ball. He constantly leads up. He's one of the best lead-up players that we have, and we never honour him. We hardly ever honour his lead, and he pushes hard. When you see, other players, and I'm not going to name them, but they just stand there and point to a spot, you're not going to get the ball. Ben Long, who's a smaller guy, demands it, and he has contests. There was a passage in the last quarter or third, or can't remember when, honestly. The ball went in high, and he nearly took a big specky, and he crashed 2 players, and a Carlton player had to go to the bench because Ben Long hit them that hard. I wish a lot of our other players hit players that hard. Loney and Nunes have never, ever been team players. They are look-at-me players. Pete says, again, the usual suspects ball watching when the game is in the balance, and when we are bored going to pull the fingers out and appoint Rat so he can get a head start on next year. We were not allowed to win today. Commentary was absolutely annoying, says Marcus. I didn't hear the commentary, so that just means don't watch the replay. Ian says 1 goal for in third and 2 goals in fourth. Not acceptable. Some of them need to rethink AFL careers. Andrew says Dunstan has been great, but was shut down by Kerno. Nathan Brown was very good. I thought he was very good as well. Nick Hines stood out. Wish we could have 10 of him, says Pete. Jason says Casbolt had 3 score assists for us. Nick Hine was awesome. Stop making excuses, says Ian. Ian, loving your commentary, mate. Really constructive feedback there. Awesome. Keep it coming. Forward 50 entries were poor today. Same thing has let us down all year, says Johnny. Matthew says 5 points in the third quarter destroyed us. Once again, no composure. Tanya says, yep, they wanted it more. Michael says, should have won that. Carlton wanted it more. Razor says they wanted it more. A lot of people are agreeing with me that they just tried harder. You know, their execution wasn't, you know, that much better than ours. They just created more chances. And I said that in the preview that I did with Blue Abroad, which is a new Carlton fan page. And, you know, they'll be very happy today with this result. But I said to them on that, you know, whoever gets the centre clearances and gets the cleaner ball in the 50 is going to win the game, and they did that more than us, and they won the game. And I also tipped us by 10 points in that preview, but it went the other way around, disappointingly. Jason says Carlton wanted it more. They don't want to give Adelaide pick 2, and it's kind of a win for us draft pick wise. Charlie Constable and Wright Abbott for a 30-year-old Stephen. Thanks, Stephen, for everything, but that's an offer that's hard to turn away, in my opinion. Carla wasn't the best down in the forward line in the last quarter. Andrew says great signs from Clark and Hind, lessons from Marshall, too many passengers, poor decisions and errors. Let's see what else we've got. Sam says Geelong been chasing Stephen for the last 3 years, so every chance that they might want to go for him. Claire says I think Ben Long is good. He works hard and runs hard. I agree. I think Ben Long has got a lot to show and a lot to offer in the next couple of seasons. He's only 21 or 22. You know, the amount of criticism some of these young players go through is ridiculous. You know, let's give them a season or two. We were patient with Billings for 4 seasons, you know, and now he's delivering. So you got to give players like that time. They're not going to just come into the team like a Gresham or a Marshall and just hit the ground running. They're going to need time. Long has X Factor, agreed. That's something we need. Nick Hine has X Factor. You know, we need players that have that sort of excitement that create something out of nothing, and that's what they do. Up the baggers, says Ethan. Joseph says a long year, but you don't deserve a place in the 8 if you're not willing to fight for it. Agreed. Let's see what else we've got, and then I might shut this down. Ben says Loney has a little purple patch for 4 weeks, back to his annoying worst today, diving, flopping and going to the ground too easy. The best thing Loney did today was that first field kick that he had, and I think it was to Tim Membry on the lead, lace out. That's exactly the sort of Loney that we want, not the one flopping around and milking free kicks. Marty says need to improve tackling and reduce the amount of effective handballs the opposition gets from tackles. Sam says don't understand the Long hate. Would love to see Brad Hill, Hugh Greenwood and Zach Jones in the team next year. I might leave it there, guys. Thanks again for commenting. My overall view of the game was that it was a game that we could have won, but I don't think it was a game that we should have won, if that makes sense. We could have snatched it if we had a little bit of composure and ascendancy in that last 5 minutes. But I think if you look at the general play, Carlton fought for it harder. They wanted it more. They attacked us more. And they just worked hard and ran for longer. And that's really what got them the win. No excuses at all. The better teams, I hate to say, but I think they were slightly better for longer, and they made it count when they went forward. You know, we missed some really critical chances in that third quarter in particular to stretch the lead, and I keep forgetting that it was 40-16 or something at one point in the second quarter. We go on to kick 4 goals for the rest of the game. You know, we had the momentum and it just went away and we couldn't hold it. So it's just disappointing, but you know, it's a learning game. We know that Ratton's, you know, is doing his best and with what he's got, but let's have a big off season. We've got one big game next week against Sydney. We've never played well there in recent times, so I might be flying over to see that. So fingers crossed that the boys turn it on, because today was disappointing. Thanks again for watching, guys. Keep the comments coming. I'll respond when I can. And thanks to everyone that spots me at the grounds. They say hi, and, you know, oh, that's the guy from Saints TV. It's pretty funny seeing that, but it's good to see some of you in the flesh, and, you know, putting the faces to the names that I see commenting here all the time. So keep them coming, and stay tuned for my preview on Thursday night for the Sydney game, for our last game of the season. It's been a long season. It's been fast, hasn't it? You know, a lot of changes, but the off season is gonna, from what the rumors that I've heard, guys, from the people that I know, it's gonna be a lot of different things happening at St Kilda, which will excite us, a lot of fans. So, you know, stand tough, and we'll get there. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Like, comment, share. It'll be on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, all that. And I'll chat to you soon. Thanks for watching. Go Saints.